The 1910 Wright Flyer, that was the first airplane that the United States government bought. They bought it for the U.S. Army Signal Corps, and this airplane was modeled after the real Wright B Flyer that the Army bought that's in the Air Force Museum. We don't call this airplane a replica because a replica would imply it was built in the same techniques that the builders did. That would not be safe for us to fly. The airplane is built to the same configuration that the Wright brothers used. One single engine driving two propellers with a chain drive system. The airplane was built at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base by a bunch of volunteers, and they started in 1975 and they first flew in 1982. They formed a 501c3 nonprofit, and the group worked on setting up that nonprofit, establishing the hangar, the facility, everything that you see here, and began giving rides in about 1984 or so. Since that time, we've flown over 4,700 people in the right seat of that airplane. The airplane's been to Berlin, the airplane's been to the Rose Bowl, it's flown around Statue of Liberty. So we've introduced the Wright brothers all across the world through the use of this airplane. The experience that we give people is about showing people what the Wright brothers had to contend with when they flew their airplane. Because this is not like sitting in row 23C of a Delta Airlines 767. The airplane has very little natural stability, so the pilot is flying it active all the time. You're out in the slipstream, 50 knots of wind in your face, so it's like riding down a highway. Well, the first time I flew, I have about 5,000 hours, been flying for about 50 years. And I realized as we lifted off that this airplane didn't fly like anything I had ever flown. It's active on the controls every single moment you're flying. It was a handful. And that comes from several things. It comes from the propeller configuration, two props from one engine. It also comes from the fact that there's a large contribution to the way the airplane flies based on the flying wires that hold the airplane together, based on the fact that the cockpit is not enclosed, so aerodynamic flow around the cockpit is sometimes unpredictable. I felt pretty humbled after the first flight, but as most of our pilots are, we all learn it fairly well. Doesn't mean we don't make good landings every time, but we try.
We started dialogue with Jay about 2 years ago. We had a few cadets that were doing externships as part of summer research with General Electric in Cincinnati. So I was able to reach out to them and get them to come up and fly with us, and then work with the AOG to get them to do some of the funding as well.
I thought the coolest thing was takeoff and when we were in the air, just because it seemed like it was pretty hard to fly, and I actually thought, it seems like you're up pretty high. He said we're only up about 50 feet. It seems like it takes a lot longer when you're actually in the air compared to when you're watching on the ground, but it's definitely cool. I loved the experience. I thought it was really fun.
We went up knowing what planes are like and kind of knowing what flight was like, and it was still absolutely exhilarating. I can't imagine doing that for the first time without metal wings and without a metal plane, doing that on wood with paper. That would be, geez, that'd be scary.
It's kind of weird going up. Normal airplanes going pretty fast, and this one is kind of going slow. You got the wind in your face, propellers right behind you. It just went right up. We glided to the end of the runway and came back down. It was smooth sailing. It was a really cool experience.
We get people who are aviation enthusiasts who want to feel what the Wright brothers felt. We get Mom and Pa Kettle that say, hey, that looks like it would be fun. We occasionally get pilots out who say, thought I'd try it, until they realize it's not really like any other airplane that they've flown. So we get really the full spectrum of people. We have never had anybody get out of the right seat without a smile on their face though. The passengers don't get to fly the airplane when we give them this introductory flight, but we have made exceptions. We've had Neil Armstrong in the right seat of this airplane, and we took the airplane off the station and we let Neil fly it around. So if you set foot on the moon, we'll let you fly it.
I'd like to make this part of the cadet experience when cadets come for their summer programs out here to Ohio. It introduces really cadets to the founding of aviation and what the Wright Brothers went through. It's an educational experience for them, and it also gets them motivated for an Air Force career as well.
Flying the Wright Bee is probably one of the hardest things just because it's so crude, and I mean it's really the first flying instrument that we had, so I think it's really cool and not an experience most people get, so I thought it was pretty unique.
It was one of the coolest things I've ever done. Obviously it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's cool to be here where the Wright Brothers did everything, and it's cool to talk to so many people who've done awesome things in and out of the Air Force, so all in all, awesome.
If you weren't really sure if you wanted to fly, this will convince you that you do want to fly. So it's a motivational flight. It's great that they learn and understand the Wright Brothers innovation process. It's also great for them to understand the aerodynamic characteristics go in the airplane. So it's the kind of thing where if a group is looking for a unique experience, this is the only place you can come and fly an airplane and experience it the way we show you.